Welcome back to English in Fluency. I'm your host, Alex, and I am genuinely so happy you're here with me today. Whether you are listening during your morning commute, sitting at your desk with a coffee, taking a walk, or lying in bed before you go to sleep, I want you to know that the fact that you are here, choosing to spend your time practicing English, says something really great about you. Learning a language is not easy. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes a certain kind of courage, and it takes showing up even when it feels hard. So the fact that you're here, right now, pressing play on this episode, that's already a win. And I want you to hold on to that feeling as we go through today's content, because today we are going to cover something that is going to make a real difference in how you understand and participate in English conversations. Now, before we dive in, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever been in a conversation in English? A real one, maybe at work or with friends, or even just watching a show or a film, and someone said something, reacted in some way, and you just did not understand the emotional weight of what happened? Maybe their voice went up suddenly and sharp. Maybe they said something short like, "No way," and you were not sure if they were pleased or upset, or just being sarcastic. Maybe someone's whole face changed, and they went quiet for a second, and you could not figure out what was going on inside them. Maybe they used a phrase you had never heard before, something like, "I'm floored," or "that came out of nowhere," and you nodded along, pretending to understand, while your brain was quietly going, "What does that mean exactly?" If any of this sounds familiar, today's episode is made for you, because today on English in Fluency, we are going deep into one of the most emotionally rich, most natural, most important parts of real everyday English conversation. And that is how native speakers express surprise. I want to be clear about something from the start. This is not just a vocabulary lesson. This is not a list of 10 phrases you should memorize and move on. What we are doing today is something more fundamental than that. We are training your ear. We are building your emotional intelligence in English. We are helping you not just recognize the words but feel the meaning behind them, understand the context, know when something is being said with genuine shock versus playful disbelief versus quiet, personal astonishment. Because here is the truth about surprise in English. It is not one thing. It is many things. And the way people express it varies enormously depending on who they are, what happened, how they feel about it, and what the relationship is between the people in the conversation. There is no single face of surprise in English. There are dozens, and after today, you are going to start recognizing all of them. If you are new to this channel, my name is Alex, and this is English in Fluency, where we are all about real, natural, flowing English. The kind of English that real people actually use every day. The kind that feels warm and human and alive. The kind that nobody teaches you in a textbook. That is what we do here, and I would love for you to subscribe and join this community, because every episode is designed to move you forward in a way that feels practical and genuine and actually enjoyable. And if you have been here before, welcome back. You already know what this is about. Let's get into it. Here is something I want you to sit with for just a moment. Think about the last time you were genuinely surprised. Not a mild, "oh, that's interesting" kind of surprised. I mean really caught off guard. Something happened, or someone said something, and your body reacted before your brain even had a chance to catch up. Maybe your breath caught in your throat. Maybe you felt a rush of something in your chest. Maybe your eyes got wide, or your hand went to your mouth, or you made a sound you didn't plan to make. Surprise is one of the most physical of all emotions. It arrives before thought. It happens to you rather than something you decide to feel. And because it is so fast and so physical, the language that expresses it is also fast and spontaneous and unpolished. It does not wait for grammar. It does not pause for a perfectly constructed sentence. It just comes out. And that is exactly what makes it so challenging to learn and so important to understand. When a native speaker is genuinely surprised, they are not consulting a mental list of approved expressions. They are just reacting. And those reactions, those instinctive, spontaneous, sometimes grammatically imperfect bursts of language, are the real language. That is authentic English in its most human form. And every time you hear one and understand it, you move one step closer to real fluency. Not just knowing the language, but feeling it. Understanding it the way a speaker feels it when they say it. Now, let's talk about the sounds of surprise before we even get to the words. Because surprise, more than almost any other emotion, comes out of the body as sound before it comes out as language. A sharp intake of breath, a gasped "oh", a drawn-out "ooh", a short "ah". These are pre-verbal reactions, meaning they happen before the brain has even chosen words. And when you hear these sounds in an English conversation, they are absolutely meaningful. They are telling you something big just happened, something unexpected landed, something changed. Learning to hear these sounds and read them correctly is an early and important layer of listening comprehension that often gets overlooked. Let's build our understanding today with 4 characters who are going to take us through a series of real-life situations. These are ordinary people, living ordinary lives, and surprise keeps finding them in all the places it tends to find all of us. I want you to get to know them a little before we start, because understanding who they are will help you understand why they react the way they do. Daniela is in her late 20s. She recently moved to a new city, and she is just getting settled into a new apartment, a new job, a new neighborhood, and a whole set of new people and experiences. She is warm. She laughs easily. She gets excited about things, and because her life is full of change right now, she encounters surprises more often than most. She is the kind of person who reacts expressively, who lets people see how she feels, and who uses language in a way that is full of feeling. Marcus is Daniela's older brother. He is in his mid-30s, and he has a calm, measured, thoughtful quality to him. He does not startle easily. He thinks before he speaks. He tends to underreact to things as a matter of personality, which means that on the rare occasions when something truly catches him off guard, his reactions are particularly telling and meaningful. Nina is Daniela's new co-worker and quickly becoming her closest friend in the city. Nina is sharp, quick, perceptive, and she has a big personality. She is the person in any room who notices everything and who will absolutely let you know what she thinks about it. She uses vivid language, and she does not hold back. Her expressions of surprise tend to be colorful and energetic and genuinely fun to listen to. And then there is Oliver, who lives in the same building as Daniela. Oliver is quiet, gentle, a bit reserved. He is the kind of person who observes more than he announces. He tends to respond to things with a kind of thoughtful understatement that is very particular and very real. His moments of surprise are understated but unmistakable if you know what to listen for. These four people are going to take us through 9 different situations today. 9 moments of surprise, each one revealing something different about how English speakers express the unexpected. Let's begin. It is a Tuesday morning. Daniela has just arrived at the office, her second week on the job. She goes into the small kitchen area to make herself a coffee, running a few minutes late and trying to get her morning under control. Nina rushes in behind her, eyes wide, clearly carrying news she is desperate to share. Nina stops in the doorway and says, "Daniela, oh my goodness, did you hear?" And Daniela turns around and says, "Hear what? What happened?" And Nina crosses the room in about 4 steps and grabs her arm and says, "The Henderson campaign, they approved it. All of it. Every single section of the proposal, Patricia just got the email." And Daniela goes completely still for a second. Then she says, "Wait, are you serious? They approved the whole thing?" Nina nods with huge enthusiasm. "The whole thing?" And Daniela puts her coffee cup down and says slowly, "I did not see that coming. I genuinely did not see that coming. I thought for sure they were going to push back on at least the budget section." And Nina laughs and says, "I know, right? I almost fell off my chair when she told me. I literally almost fell off my chair." Let's stop right here and really look at what just happened in that short exchange. We have our very first expression of surprise. Oh my goodness, this is one of the most versatile, most widely used expressions of surprise in English. And it's important to understand why it works so well. It's polite. It can be used anywhere, in a professional setting, with friends, with people you have just met, with older people, with children. It doesn't carry any edge or aggression. It's just a clean, honest expression of being struck by something. And notice that Nina uses it before she says what the news is. She leads with the feeling. She lets you know something is coming before she tells you what it is. This is a very natural human pattern, and you will see it constantly in English conversations. People announce the emotional weight of news before they deliver the actual content. Now, let's look at Daniela's response. She says, "Wait, are you serious? They approved the whole thing?" There are 3 separate moves happening in this one response, and all 3 are worth understanding individually. First, she says, "Wait." Used this way, with a slightly rising tone and a short pause before the next thought. Wait is a way of hitting an emotional pause button. It signals that what she just heard has landed differently than normal information. It's bigger than she expected, and she needs a moment. It doesn't mean she wants Nina to be quiet. It means something like, "Hold on, I'm processing. I need a second here." Then she says, "Are you serious?" This phrase is so important and so commonly misunderstood. When a native English speaker says, "Are you serious?" in a surprised tone, they are almost never actually questioning the other person's honesty or their character. They are using the question as an expression of shock. It is like saying, "This is so surprising, I need you to confirm it is real." It can also carry an undercurrent of delight in a positive situation or disbelief in a shocking one. The tone tells you everything. In this moment, with rising pitch and wide eyes, "Are you serious?" means I cannot believe how good this is. And then Daniela echoes the most surprising part back as a question. They approved the whole thing? Echoing what you just heard as a question is one of the most natural and one of the most useful patterns in English for expressing surprise. It shows you heard. It confirms you understood. It expresses that the information is larger than you expected, and it invites the other person to confirm and expand. All in 4 words. Powerful. Then Daniela says, "I did not see that coming." She says it twice, actually, with the word genuinely added to the second one for extra weight. This is one of the most beautifully natural phrases in spoken English for expressing surprise. Its imagery is so clear. To see something coming means you anticipated it. You were watching for it. You knew it was on its way. Not to see it coming means the opposite. No warning, no hint. It arrived unexpectedly. And the word genuinely that Daniela adds is really doing important work. When someone says, "I genuinely didn't see that coming," they're emphasizing that this is not just a phrase they grabbed. They mean it in the most honest possible sense. And then Nina closes the scene with, "I almost fell off my chair when she told me." This is hyperbole, deliberately exaggerated language used to make emotion vivid and relatable. Nina did not literally almost fall off a chair, but the physical image of being so shocked that your body loses its balance captures something real about how a big surprise feels. This kind of warm, playful exaggeration is extremely common in casual English speech, and particularly common when people are talking about positive surprises or exciting news. Let's move forward to our second scene. It is a few evenings later. Daniela is on the phone with her brother Marcus. She is walking around her apartment while they talk, just catching up. She tells him she ran into someone unexpected over the weekend. Daniela says, "I completely forgot to tell you this. On Saturday I ran into Mrs. Patterson." And Marcus says, "Mrs. Patterson? From the old street?" Daniela says, "From the old street. I was in the corner shop and there she was." And Marcus takes a beat before responding. "Huh. I thought she moved away years back." Daniela says, "She did, apparently. But she's back. She's living like 3 streets away from my new place." Another beat. Then Marcus says, "Small world. That is really something." Daniela says, "She remembered everything, Marcus. She asked about you. She asked about Mum. She even asked about whether you were still swimming." And after a moment, Marcus says, quietly, "Well, I'll be. I would genuinely never have guessed that. Not in 100 years." This exchange is really important because Marcus is a very different personality from Nina and Daniela, and his expressions of surprise reflect that. When he says, "Huh," followed by a short pause, that is a sound worth paying attention to. "Huh," with a slightly rising and then settling tone, is a quiet, thoughtful sound of processing something unexpected. It is very understated. It doesn't shout. But it communicates clearly that something he just heard did not match what he expected. You could think of it as the sonic equivalent of a slight pause and a raised eyebrow. Then he says, "Small world." This is an idiom that native speakers reach for when they discover unexpected connections between people or places. The phrase captures the feeling that the world is somehow smaller and more connected than you expected, that coincidences happen more often than they should. It has a slightly musing, reflective quality to it. It is not an exclamation. It is almost a quiet observation. But it is absolutely a marker of surprise. And then Marcus ends with, "Well, I'll be." This is an older expression, one that you are more likely to hear from people who are a little older or from certain regions, but it is still very much alive in English and very much worth recognizing. It essentially means, well, that is something I never would have expected. It is quiet and restrained, but the surprise is entirely real. Followed by, I would genuinely never have guessed that, not in 100 years, it paints a picture of someone who is genuinely taken aback, but expresses it in the quietest possible way. Let's pick up the pace with our third scene. It's Saturday morning. Daniela and Nina are at an outdoor food market in the neighborhood. They're having a lovely, relaxed time, trying food samples, people watching, talking about everything and nothing. And then Nina stops so abruptly that Daniela almost walks into her. Nina says, stopping mid-step, "Oh, my word." And she says it slowly, one word at a time, each one landing separately. And Daniela says, "What? What is it?" Nina points very subtly across the market. "Is that Tobias?" Daniela squints in the direction Nina is pointing. "Wait, is that the chef? From that restaurant we went to in March?" Nina nods, wide-eyed. "That is absolutely him. What is he doing here? At a market stall?" They edge a little closer, and they see that, yes, it is Tobias, and he is running his own small food stall, selling handmade sauces and preserves with a little sign that says Tobias & Co. And Nina shakes her head slowly and says, "Okay, I'm sorry. But I did not see this coming. Not even slightly. He was the head chef at a well-known restaurant, and now he's here selling preserves?" And Daniela laughs softly and says, "Good for him. Maybe he wanted to do his own thing." And Nina says, "I'm genuinely floored. Like actually floored. There is so much to pull apart here. First, oh my word is a sibling of oh my goodness, but the way Nina says it, with deliberate pauses between each word, intensifies the feeling enormously. When you slow down and separate words that would normally flow together, you are letting your surprise breathe. You are communicating that each word is carrying weight. Oh, my word sounds different from oh my word, said quickly. The slower version tells you the surprise is bigger. It is taking up more space. Then Daniela says, "Wait, is that the chef? From that restaurant?" Notice how her sentence breaks in the middle. There is a pause. She starts a question and then redirects it. This fragmentary, slightly broken sentence structure is what real speech sounds like when someone is processing something visually surprising in real time. They are seeing something, checking it, rechecking it, forming words while the brain is still doing its analysis. Language and thought are happening at the same time, and that creates natural interruptions and restarts. This is very different from rehearsed or scripted English, and learning to hear it and understand it is a crucial part of listening fluency. Then Nina says, "What is he doing here?" This is a rhetorical question. She is not genuinely asking for an explanation. She is using the question form to express her disbelief. In English, "What is she doing here?" Or, "What is this about?" Or, "What is going on?" said in a surprised tone, are often not real questions seeking information. They are expressions of emotional disorientation. They mean, "I cannot quite process this. It does not fit the picture I had in my head. What is the explanation for this unexpected reality in front of me?" And then Nina says, "I'm genuinely floored. Like actually floored." To be floored means to be so stunned by something that it feels as though the ground disappeared from under you, as though you were knocked flat. It is a vivid, physical metaphor for shock. And the double emphasis here, genuinely, and then, like actually, shows that Nina is pushing back against the possibility that this might sound like an exaggeration. She wants you to know this is not just a phrase, this is real. Genuinely and actually used this way are both sincerity intensifiers. They make the emotion feel more honest and more personal. Now, let's slow things down for our fourth scene. It's Sunday evening. Daniela is heading back into her building after a walk, and she runs into Oliver in the lobby. He is standing holding an envelope, looking a little bit like he is not sure if he is awake. Daniela says, "Hey, Oliver, you okay? You look a little off." And he looks up and says, "Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm fine. I just got some news." And she says, "Good or bad?" And he holds up the envelope and says, "Good. Very good, actually. I applied for a research grant about 8 months ago. And I sort of put it out of my mind because the acceptance rate is extremely low. I didn't think anything would come of it." He pauses. "They gave it to me." And Daniela's eyes go wide and she says, "Oliver. Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's amazing." And he says the amount, and she makes a small involuntary sound, a quiet gasp, and says, "That is, oh wow, that is not a small grant. Oliver, oh my goodness, that is wonderful." And Oliver gives a quiet, slightly dazed smile and says, "I know. I'm still kind of in shock, honestly. It doesn't feel real yet." Let's spend a moment with Oliver's response here because it is so beautifully quiet and so perfectly human. He says, "I'm still kind of in shock, honestly." Every word here is doing something. Still tells you that the shock is ongoing, not a past feeling, but a present one. Kind of softens the statement slightly, making it feel measured and honest rather than dramatic. In shock is a phrase that captures the feeling of being overwhelmed by something so unexpected that your mind is having trouble accepting it as real. And honestly, at the end, is an authenticity marker, a little word that signals he is telling you something genuinely true about his inner state. Together, these words create a portrait of a person who is surprised, a little overwhelmed, and still trying to absorb a reality that feels surreal. Let's move into our fifth scene. It is Monday, the team meeting. Patricia, the manager, is wrapping up a regular update when she says something that changes the energy in the entire room. Patricia says, "One more item before we close. As of the 1st of next month, this team will be relocating to the downtown office." The room goes quiet, really quiet. Nina says, "Sorry, I'm sorry. The downtown office?" And someone else says, "I thought that wasn't opening until next year." Patricia says, "The timeline was moved up. I understand this is short notice. It's been confirmed." And Daniela says slowly, "So this is definitely happening? It's not a maybe?" Patricia says, "It's confirmed." More silence. The kind of silence that happens when a room full of people is simultaneously surprised and trying to think through what that means for them. After the meeting, Daniela and Nina are walking back to their desks, and Nina says, low and a little stunned, "I cannot believe that just happened. I genuinely cannot believe it." And Daniela says, "That came completely out of nowhere. I mean, completely. I had zero idea." Nina shakes her head. 40 minutes from here, Daniela. That changes how I get to work, where I eat lunch, everything." And Daniela nods. "I know. I'm honestly still processing it. I don't even have a reaction yet. I just feel kind of blank." "I cannot believe that just happened" is a very common response to shocking news, particularly news that is disruptive or unwelcome. It expresses that reality has presented you with something so contrary to your expectations that your belief system is struggling to accommodate it. That came completely out of nowhere pairs completely with the idiom out of nowhere for extra emphasis. Out of nowhere means something appeared without warning, from a direction you were not watching. It is a very evocative little idiom for total unexpectedness. And then Daniela says, "I don't even have a reaction yet. I just feel kind of blank." This is a very honest and very real description of a specific kind of surprise, the kind that is so large or so disorienting that the normal emotional response hasn't arrived yet. The surprise has outpaced the feeling. You are standing in the space between the news and the emotion, and it is a strange, slightly empty place to be. Let's shift into our sixth scene, a more personal moment. Daniela is at dinner with Marcus, who has come to visit for a weekend. They are at a nice restaurant, halfway through their meal, and Marcus says something that stops Daniela cold. Marcus sets down his fork and says, "I've been meaning to say something for a while. I'm thinking about leaving my job." And Daniela pauses. She says, "You're thinking about what?" And he says, "Leaving. I've been there 11 years, and I think I've maybe been there 2 years too long." A silence between them. Daniela picks up her glass and puts it down without drinking. "I mean," she starts, then stops. "I don't even know what to say. Marcus, you've always loved that job." And he says, "I used to love it." Another beat. "Wow," Daniela says quietly. "I mean, wow." She shakes her head. "I had absolutely no idea you were feeling this way. You never said anything." He shrugs. "I'm still working out what I think myself." Daniela sits back and says, very quietly, "Well, that is a lot to take in." This scene is different from the others because the surprise here is personal and emotional, not about external news. It is about someone close to you revealing something true about themselves that you did not know. Daniela says, "I don't even know what to say." This is the honest acknowledgement that the news is too layered and too important to respond to quickly. It means she needs time. It means she is taking it seriously. It is a very emotionally intelligent thing to say, because it communicates to Marcus that what he shared was significant. She repeats "wow" twice on its own, with nothing attached, just "wow," and then another "wow." When someone can only say "wow" and trail off, it is because the language hasn't caught up with the feeling yet. The emotion is there, but the words are still forming. The repetition of a single reaction word is one of the most honest things language can do. And she ends with, "That is a lot to take in." This phrase is gentle and real and deeply useful. A lot to take in means the information is substantial, complex, emotionally weighty, and you need time to absorb and process it. It does not dismiss what was said. It honors it. Scene 7. Daniela comes home from the gym one evening, and she finds a package outside her apartment door. She was not expecting any deliveries. She picks it up and sees her name, but no return address. She takes it inside and opens it slowly. Inside, there is a beautiful book she mentioned wanting months ago, a short handwritten note, and a small box of chocolates. The note is from her old university friend, Priya, who she has not spoken to in almost a year. Daniela reads the note and then sits down on her couch and just says, "Oh my goodness," quietly, to herself. And then, "That is the sweetest thing." She reads the note again, and then she pulls out her phone and dials. When Priya answers, Daniela says, Priya, I literally cannot believe you did this. I'm sitting here and I don't know what to say. This is the nicest thing. And Priya laughs, and Daniela says, I had completely forgotten I even mentioned that book. Completely. I cannot believe you remembered. Are you for real right now? And there is laughing on both ends, and Daniela says, You made my whole week. You really did. I was not expecting this at all. Oh my goodness, said quietly, and alone, just to yourself, is a different thing from, oh my goodness, said loudly to someone in a kitchen. When surprise is private and soft, the expression of it is also private and soft. Are you for real right now? Is a playful but genuine expression of surprise, similar to, are you serious? But with a lighter, warmer tone. It acknowledges the surprise, but also the affection of the moment. And you made my whole week is a wonderful expression for when something unexpected does not just surprise you, but genuinely elevates your mood and your day. Scene 8. Oliver is in the courtyard of the building, reading on a Saturday morning. Daniela comes down with her coffee and joins him. They have been friendly neighbors for a few months now, and their friendship has deepened. Out of nowhere, Daniela's phone rings. She looks at the screen. A frown crosses her face. She answers. Hello? Grandma? A pause. Wait, slow down. What are you saying? Another pause. You're coming here next week? Her hand goes up slightly as if to steady herself. Grandma, I am so excited. But next week? I had no idea you were planning this. More listening. Then a soft laugh. Okay, yes, I cannot wait to see you. Love you. Bye. She hangs up and stands very still for a moment. Oliver looks over from his book. Everything all right? And Daniela turns to him with a face that is somewhere between delighted and stunned. My grandmother is coming to visit. Next week. She didn't mention it. No warning. Just decided. And Oliver blinks. Just like that? And Daniela laughs. Just like that. I'm delighted, genuinely, but I'm also kind of stunned. And Oliver says quietly, Well, that's something. And Daniela nods and says, Yeah, I'm still yeah. When Daniela says, Wait, slow down, she is not saying that her grandmother is speaking too fast. She is saying that what is being communicated is so unexpected that she needs more time to absorb it. Slow down, in this context, is a reaction to overwhelming information, a way of saying, This is a lot. Please give me a moment to catch up. Oliver's response, just like that, is a beautiful, minimalist, echoing question. It takes the most surprising element, the suddenness and unexpectedness of the grandmother's decision, and reflects it back in 3 words. And then there is Daniela's ending. I'm still yeah. She does not finish her sentence. The yeah functions as a placeholder for the thought that hasn't fully formed yet. When someone trails off and replaces the end of a sentence with yeah, it is one of those moments in real conversation where language runs out before the feeling does. Our 9th and final scene. It is a few weeks later. Daniela and Oliver are having a drink on the small terrace outside his apartment, talking about everything that has happened. Daniela says, You know what's funny? A month ago I didn't know about the campaign, or the move, or Marcus leaving his job, or my grandmother coming, or your Grant. None of it. I was just here, thinking things were probably going to go along as they were. And Oliver nods slowly. That's the thing about unexpected things. You never know when they're coming. And Daniela says, Right? And then they all happen at once. She laughs quietly. I feel like I've had about 10 surprises in the space of 4 weeks. And Oliver says, how do you feel about all of them? And she thinks for a moment and says, good, mostly. Rattled. But good. I think I'm still processing some of it. Honestly. And Oliver says, very gently, yeah, sometimes things take time to land. That last phrase from Oliver, sometimes things take time to land, is one of those quiet, understated, deeply true things that do not shout their wisdom, but carry it gently. To land in this context means to arrive fully in your understanding, to settle in emotionally and mentally. Surprise sometimes does not fully land immediately. You hear the news, you react, but the full weight, the full meaning, the full feeling arrives later, gradually, as you live with it. Now I want to take some time and go deeper on several things that will really round out your understanding. First, let's talk about something I call the spectrum of surprise. Because surprise is not just one intensity level. It ranges from the mildest, most understated reaction to the most dramatic, most overwhelming one. And different expressions live at different points along that spectrum. At the very quiet end, you have things like, huh, which we heard from Marcus. A small sound, a brief pause, a slight shift in the voice. It is the absolute minimum of expressed surprise, but it is still communicating something. Then, slightly above that, that's surprising, or that's unexpected. Simple statements that acknowledge the unexpected quality of the news without adding much energy to it. A little above that, I didn't see that coming, or that came out of nowhere. These are more complete expressions, but still relatively calm. Moving up the spectrum, are you serious? And wait, really? Start to add energy and pitch change. Higher still, I cannot believe it, and I'm genuinely shocked. And at the very expressive end, oh my goodness, I am completely floored. I literally cannot believe this is happening. All of these are valid. All of these are natural. Where a person lands on the spectrum in any given moment depends on their personality, on the size of the surprise, on the context, and on their relationship with the person they're talking to. Understanding this spectrum is useful because it helps you calibrate your own responses. You do not have to go to the loud, expressive end every time something unexpected happens. Sometimes a quiet, huh, I didn't know that, is exactly right. And sometimes, oh wow, are you kidding me, is exactly right. The skill is in reading the moment and choosing the response that fits. Let's also spend some time on the difference between surprise and shock. In everyday English, people often use these words interchangeably, but they are actually slightly different feelings, and the language reflects that. Surprise is the experience of something happening that you didn't expect. Shock is a stronger version of that, where the unexpectedness is so extreme that it has a destabilizing effect. You can be pleasantly surprised. It is harder to be pleasantly shocked. Shock tends to carry a heavier weight, a sense of being knocked off balance, a sense that reality has shifted in a fundamental way. I was surprised to hear he was leaving. Sounds different from, I was shocked to hear he was leaving. The first says it was unexpected. The second says it was so unexpected that it hit hard. I'm shocked is stronger than I'm surprised. I'm completely stunned is stronger still. And I'm genuinely speechless is at the very extreme end, where the surprise is so large that language itself has temporarily failed. When you are learning English and you want to express how surprised you are, thinking about where on this spectrum you actually are. From mildly surprised to genuinely stunned can help you choose the most accurate and most natural expression. Now, let's talk about tone in more depth. We have mentioned tone throughout this episode, but I want to give it its own moment because it is that important. Tone is everything in English when it comes to emotional expression. The exact same words said in different tones can mean completely different things. Let me walk you through some examples. "That's interesting," said with a bright, rising, curious tone. This means you find something genuinely interesting or surprising in a pleasant way. Said with a flat, somewhat neutral tone, it can mean you are politely noting something without much real feeling. Said with a slightly skeptical, slow tone, it can signal disbelief, like you think something is not quite right. "Really?" said quickly, with a high, sharp rise in pitch, means genuine surprise and curiosity. Said slowly, with a falling tone and a slight pause, before it can mean skepticism or mild annoyance. Said with a long, drawn-out tone and a smile in the voice, it's playful and affectionate. "Oh," just "oh." This little word does more work in English than almost any other. A short, bright "oh" means sudden positive surprise. A slower, flatter "oh" means something clicked. You understood something. A long, low "oh" can mean you just realized something that changes your understanding of a situation. A small, slightly deflated "oh" can mean mild disappointment. And a very soft, quiet "oh" said in a private moment means deep personal surprise or emotion. Learning to hear tone is not something you can do from a textbook. It comes from listening, from exposure, from paying attention not just to what is said, but to how it is said. And every episode of this channel, every English conversation you engage with, every show you watch and podcast you listen to, is practice for this. Over time, your ear will develop. Tone will start to speak to you as clearly as words. And when that happens, your comprehension of real English will jump significantly. Let's now look at something really interesting: how the echoing question works in practice. We have mentioned it several times today, but I want to make sure you leave with a really clear and practical understanding. When you hear something surprising in English, one of the most natural and most effective things you can do is take the most surprising piece of information and reflect it back as a question. This is instinctive for native speakers, and it does several important things at once. It shows you were listening. It shows you understood. It signals surprise. It keeps the conversation going. It invites the speaker to confirm and expand. And it gives you a tiny bit of extra time to process while sounding completely natural. Let's practice with a few examples. Someone says to you, "I just found out my company is being acquired." Your echoing response might be, "Being acquired? By who?" Or, "Your company? I had no idea that was happening." Someone says, "I got a message this morning from an old teacher of mine. She remembered me after 15 years. Your echoing response might be, "She remembered you? After 15 years? Or, a message from her? Out of nowhere?" Someone says, "They're demolishing the old cinema to build a car park." Your echoing response might be, "The old cinema? They're tearing it down?" Or, "A car park? Are you serious?" Each time, you are taking the most unexpected element: the acquisition, the teacher who remembered, the cinema being torn down, and turning it into a surprised question. This is simple, natural, and enormously effective. Practice it. Make it a habit, and watch how much more engaged and fluent your English conversations start to feel. Now, let's address something that is very common in English and very particular to expressing strong surprise, and that is the use of extreme or absolute language. When people are genuinely shocked or surprised in English, they often reach for words that push to the extreme end. Completely, absolutely, totally, entirely, genuinely, literally. These are all intensifiers, and they get used a lot in moments of surprise because surprise pushes language toward extremes. I had absolutely no idea. I was completely blindsided. I am totally floored. I genuinely cannot believe it. I literally didn't see that coming. The word literally in casual speech has evolved to function as an intensifier rather than always meaning in the literal, factual sense. I literally cannot believe it does not mean you are physically unable to believe it. It means your belief is under strong pressure. This casual use of literally is very common, especially among younger English speakers, and is something you will hear constantly. It is worth understanding even if you choose not to use it yourself. Completely and totally are very common alongside words for surprise. Completely out of nowhere. Totally unexpected. Totally blindsided. They add emphasis and completeness to the expression, saying not just that you were surprised, but that you were surprised from every direction, without any exception. Understanding how intensifiers work in emotional language makes a huge difference to comprehension, because they change the strength of what is being said. I was surprised, and I was completely blindsided are on very different points of the spectrum, and knowing that difference helps you understand not just what happened, but how the person felt about it. Let me take you through something that not many English learning resources spend enough time on, and that is the idea of surprise that builds slowly versus surprise that hits all at once. Because these are two very different experiences, and the language that goes with them is different too. Instantaneous surprise is the kind we have been mostly talking about today. Someone tells you something. You were not expecting it. You react immediately. Oh, wow. Or no way. Or I didn't see that coming. The information arrives, and the reaction arrives with it, essentially at the same time. But there is another kind of surprise that is slower and in some ways deeper. It is the kind where the news arrives, and at first you take it in relatively calmly, and then slowly, as minutes or hours or days go by, the full weight of it settles in. You wake up the next morning, and the first thing you think about is what you were told. You find yourself telling someone else about it and realize you are still genuinely surprised. You think about it in the middle of an ordinary task and feel the surprise again, fresh and new. You will hear people say things like, "It still hasn't fully sunk in," when they mean the information has arrived in their mind, but has not yet been absorbed into their understanding. Sunk in is a beautiful idiom. Think of water soaking into the ground. It does not happen instantly. It happens gradually, and some surfaces absorb more slowly than others. When something hasn't fully sunk in, you know what happened, but you haven't yet felt the full weight of it emotionally. You will also hear, "I'm still wrapping my head around it." This is a slightly more casual, very contemporary way of saying you are still trying to fully understand or accept something. To wrap your head around something means to fully comprehend it. to take it in completely from all sides. I can't quite wrap my head around it yet. Means the information is there, but your understanding of it is not yet complete. And it keeps catching me off guard. When something keeps catching you off guard, it means that even after you know the information, something about it still feels unreal or unexpected every time it crosses your mind. Like your brain hasn't yet fully updated its picture of reality to include the new information. Daniela experiences this with the news about her team moving offices. She knows about it. She was in the room when it was announced, but a week later, she is still occasionally stopping mid-thought and feeling the surprise again. "It keeps hitting me at random moments," she says to Oliver one evening. "Like I'll be making tea, and I'll suddenly think, wait, we're moving offices, and I'll feel surprised all over again." And Oliver nods and says, "Yeah, that can take a while to stop." And Daniela says, "It's like my brain is still catching up." And that phrase, "my brain is still catching up," is one of the most relatable and natural things you can say about delayed surprise. It means the information is there, but the emotional and cognitive adjustment hasn't finished yet. One thing I want to make sure we cover before the end is the way that context shapes not just what we say when surprised, but how we say it and how much we say. In a close friendship, surprise can be big and expressive and even a little chaotic. You can interrupt. You can exclaim. You can say, "No, wait, stop, back up, you did what?" And it is fine. It is warm. It shows you are comfortable and engaged. In a professional context, surprise needs to be managed a little more. You might feel the same shock internally, but what comes out might be more measured, more composed, more careful. That's unexpected, instead of, "Oh my goodness, are you serious right now?" "I'll need some time to think about this," instead of, "I'm completely floored." The emotion is the same. The expression is shaped by context. This is called emotional register, and it applies to all languages, but it is particularly important to understand in English because English speakers switch between formal and informal registers very quickly, and sometimes within a single conversation. A person might be very expressive and informal with a close colleague, but dial it back completely with a client or a senior manager. Understanding this helps you navigate English social situations with much more ease. And one more thing I want to mention about informality. There are some casual colloquial expressions for surprise that you will hear in everyday speech, particularly among younger speakers or in casual settings. "Get out," said in response to surprising news, does not mean the speaker wants you to leave. It is expressing strong, slightly playful disbelief, similar to "no way." "You're kidding" is another one, also similar to "you're joking." These all mean something like, "This seems so unlikely that it sounds like something you would say to be funny rather than something that actually happened." "No way, Jose" is a fun, slightly old-fashioned, slightly jokey expression. "Who would have thought" is a more reflective expression for surprise, often used when looking back at something after the fact. These are all part of the rich, varied living landscape of English as it is actually spoken. Before I let you go today, I want to leave you with a simple practice routine. For the next 7 days, try this. Day 1, notice surprise in your native language. Just pay attention to how people express it around you, in conversations, on TV, in films. What sounds do they make? What words do they reach for? This is just warming up your awareness. Day 2. Watch an English language video or show and specifically listen for any moment of surprise. It does not have to be a big dramatic moment. Even a small, "Oh, really?" counts. Day 3. Try using one expression from today in your real day. Just one. Maybe, "I didn't see that coming," when something unexpected happens, even something small. Day 4. Practice the echoing question with a friend, with English content, or just out loud to yourself. Take a surprising piece of news and turn the key information into a question. Day 5. Think of a genuinely surprising thing that has happened in your life recently, and describe it in English using the expressions we have talked about today. Write it down if you can. Day 6. Try expressing the same surprising event in 2 different registers. Once as you would say it to a close friend. Once as you would say it in a more professional or formal context. Feel the difference. Day 7. Review everything. Go back over the expressions that felt most natural to you. Practice those ones again, and notice which ones felt less natural. Those are the ones that need more time and more exposure. This kind of deliberate, consistent practice is what moves you from knowing English to living in English. And that, more than anything else, is what English in Fluency is here to help you do. I am Alex. This is English in Fluency, the channel built for everyone who wants to reach real, natural, fluent English. If today's episode helped you in any way, if even one phrase or one moment clicked in a new way, please give this video a like. It genuinely helps more people find this content, and it means a lot to me personally. And if you have not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button right now, because we put out new content regularly, and every single episode is designed to help you move forward in a practical, human, and genuinely enjoyable way. Do not miss what is coming next. Please leave a comment. Tell me something surprising that has happened to you recently. Try to describe it using some of the English expressions from today. I read every single comment, and I love seeing your progress. This channel is yours as much as it is mine, and I mean that. Share this episode with someone who is learning English and who you think would benefit. And I will see you in the very next one. Keep going. Keep showing up. You are doing so much better than you realize. See you soon! Let me also talk about something that comes up often when people learn about expressing surprise in English. And that is the question of whether some expressions sound too strong or too dramatic to use in ordinary conversation. Students sometimes worry that if they say, "I'm completely floored," or "I literally cannot believe it," they will sound exaggerated or unnatural. I want to address that directly. In casual, warm, friendly English conversation, expressive language is completely normal and expected. Native speakers use big, emphatic, emotionally charged expressions all the time, not because they are overdramatic, but because that is how genuine human connection in language works. That is what we are doing here on English in Fluency. Not just teaching language, but helping you use it to connect, to express, to be fully present in the conversations that matter to you. And that is something I genuinely love about this work. Thank you for being here today. Every minute you spent with this content, every time you said a phrase out loud, every time you paused and thought about what an expression really means, that is real progress. That is your English getting richer and more alive. And I am genuinely glad to be a part of that journey with you. Let me go one more step with you before we truly wrap up, because I want to give you something that ties everything together in a very concrete way. I want to talk about what happens in the seconds right after you receive surprising news from the perspective of language, because there is a very predictable sequence, and understanding it helps you both recognize it in others and navigate it yourself. The first second is the gasp, or the sound. Before any words form, the body reacts. A sharp breath, a small involuntary "oh," a quiet sound. This is your surprise being purely physical, unfiltered, honest. Before the brain has chosen any words, the body has already spoken. Second comes the reaction word or phrase. Wow. No way. Oh my goodness. Something short and immediate that just comes out before you have time to think. These short, instinctive phrases are the ones we have spent a lot of time on today, and they are the most recognizable markers of surprise in English. Third comes the echoing question or the clarifying repeat. Wait, really? She did what? The whole thing? This is your brain confirming what it heard, making absolutely sure, giving itself one more chance to check before accepting the information as true. Fourth comes the processing comment. I did not see that coming. That came completely out of nowhere. I'm honestly stunned. This is where you put the surprise into words as a fact, where you name what just happened to you emotionally. Fifth, if the news is complex or emotionally significant, comes the honest admission of needing time. I don't even know what to say. I'm still processing this. That is a lot to take in. This is where language gets really honest and really human, where the person acknowledges that the surprise is bigger than a quick reaction can cover. And sixth, once you have moved through those stages, you start to engage with the content of the news itself. You ask questions, you express your feelings, you move into the real substance of the conversation. Not every surprise moves through all 6 stages. A mild surprise might skip from stage 2 straight to stage 6. A very large surprise might stay in stages 4 and 5 for quite a long time. But this sequence gives you a framework for what you are hearing when someone is surprised, and it gives you a map for what to say and in what order when you are surprised yourself. Knowing this sequence is like having the grammar of emotional response. Once you have it, you can navigate it naturally. I want to spend a moment on one final aspect of surprise in English that is genuinely fascinating and genuinely useful. And that is the way humor and surprise interact. In English conversation, particularly casual and friendly English conversation, surprise is often laced with humor. People make each other laugh with their surprise reactions. The exaggeration of, "I almost fell off my chair," is funny partly because it is exaggerated and partly because it is relatable. The deadpan understatement of, "Well, that's something," is funny in a dry, quiet way. The speed and energy of, "No way, shut up, are you serious right now?" is funny in an energetic, playful way. Humor and surprise often travel together because both involve the unexpected, the thing that departs from what you were anticipating. When you are comfortable enough with surprise expressions to play with them a little, to exaggerate them slightly for effect, to time them for comic impact, to deliver an understated reaction when everyone expects an expressive one, you are doing something that is genuinely advanced in English. You are not just using the language correctly. You are using it creatively. You are shaping moments. And that level of comfort and playfulness with English is something to genuinely look forward to as you continue to develop. Here is something I also want to say about the connection between listening and speaking when it comes to surprise. A lot of learners focus almost entirely on their own ability to produce English, on what they can say, on how to say it, on getting the words right when it is their turn to speak. And that is understandable. But listening is equally important. And in the case of surprise, it might even be more important in the short term. Because before you can produce natural surprise expressions yourself, you need to hear them enough times in enough different contexts that they start to feel familiar and real. You need to absorb them. You need to let them settle in your language brain. And that means listening to real English, as much as you can, and specifically tuning your ear to the emotional content of what people say. Not just the facts, not just the information, the feelings, the reactions, the moments where someone's voice changes because something unexpected happened. Every TV show you watch, every podcast you listen to, every English conversation you have or observe is full of surprise. People are surprised constantly in real life and in storytelling. Now that you have this framework, this vocabulary, this awareness, you are going to start catching these moments everywhere. And every time you catch one, every time you recognize an expression and understand it fully, your English gets a little richer. Your ear gets a little sharper. And the distance between where you are and where you want to be gets a little smaller. Here is language learning in a single sentence. You understand more than you could yesterday, and tomorrow you will understand more than you do today. That is the whole thing. That is the whole journey. And it is a beautiful one. I am Alex. This is English in Fluency. Thank you for being here today. You did something real here. You built something. You are better at understanding English surprise than you were when you pressed play. And that is not nothing. That is real. That matters. Next time, surprise finds you in an English conversation, and it will find you, you are going to be ready in a way you were not before. That is what I am here for. That is what this channel is for. Now keep going, keep listening, keep showing up, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care of yourself. See you soon.